Many of you on this call are using one of our SIS apps. Maybe you're syncing grades from Schoology to PowerSchool or to eSchool Plus or to some other system. Okay. Maybe you are still manually entering grades into that other system, so I want to unpack that a little bit. First of all, let's talk about what can be graded in Schoology. We're talking about assignments, test quizzes, and discussions. When people get started, sometimes they just want this explained, so let's unpack it. Discussions, everyone sees each other's responses like we saw earlier. The assignments, which we've mentioned a few times, those go directly to the teacher. Students do not see each other's submissions at all. Those are totally private, okay, and can be graded by the teacher. Tests, we up the ante a little bit here because tests are automatically graded in Schoology. They take a little bit more to create because you're creating multiple choice questions and things like that. But you save all that time on the other side because you're not grading anything. You're just reviewing their responses, maybe offering some personalized feedback and comments. But the scoring itself, let's let the computer do that. I like these scenarios for these different pieces. Now this is, you can certainly creatively think outside the box here, but a standard way to think about the uses of these three assessed items. Discussions, you're extending in-class discussions. It is very hard to grade class participation because you don't really have great records of that in a live classroom participation. You do in a Schoology discussion because everything is online and archived. With that video example, perfect use for flipped classrooms, embedding videos in a discussion. Assignments, this is your paperless homework workflow. Using this for journals, you can use it for multimedia projects because students can post videos and photos and things like that. Tests and quizzes, perfect for entrance and exit tickets, check for understandings, and formative assessments. I leave out right now the idea of summative assessments because most of you are using some other system for summative assessments and for those high stakes assessments. Some people end up not using tests and quizzes because of that, simply because of those big summative assessments. When you think of tests and quizzes, think small. Even a 2-question quiz on a reading assignment will tell you immediately if students actually read the homework or not. Instead of asking the students questions, have everyone take a 2-minute quiz, and you'll immediately see the statistical analysis of answers, of responses in our tests and quizzes. So that's how I break those things up. When you create those graded items in Schoology, they create a new grade column in your gradebook here. Remember this, though, what we talked about earlier. You have to set a grading category. If you don't set a grading category, it will not show up in the gradebook. This gives you flexibility to have activities in Schoology that are ungraded, that are simply that, just an activity. But if you do want it to be a scored item, set a grading category. Now, with this, some of you may have questions with how all of this works with your SIS app, okay? If you're doing grade passback or something like that. This is the grade setup area. Gradebook, grade setup. If you are syncing grades to another system, you'll probably have, for instance, like a PowerSchool app down here that sets up the sync. We're not covering that right now. We're talking about this grade setup. All the categories that you add on the fly, like when I added participation in the discussion, they'll automatically be added here, but you can set this up beforehand. In addition, you can weight those categories. You can also create custom scales and rubrics on this side to use in all of your materials. Once this is set up, if you have linked sections, this will automatically be set up in all those linked sections. That feature that allows you to manage all your course materials in one place. They'll also have the same gradebook setup. If they are not linked sections, click Copy Settings to copy all this to another course. Now, this section down here, I want you to pay special attention to. If Schoology is not your gradebook of record, If teachers or if teachers and parents and students are only looking at Schoology for ongoing specific assignment results, but not overall scores, check these boxes to hide the overall grade in Schoology. Checking these boxes will remove that calculated grade. If you are also entering other grades into an SIS that are not in Schoology, that calculated grade could be different in the SIS than in Schoology. So you can hide the overall grade reports in Schoology to eliminate confusion. Now, one thing that came up earlier, and I thought it was worth mentioning here, someone asked, well, what if I want to put everything in Schoology but still collect paper-based homework? You can do that in a couple of different ways. First of all, clicking Add Materials and Add Assignments. The buttons down here, these buttons that say Advanced, I'd like all of you on this call to not ever look at that label ever again. Pretend it says Options. There's nothing advanced about these. Don't be scared of them. For instance, this one that is enabled by default says that the Submissions panel is enabled. Well, if you're accepting paper-based homework instead, simply turn this off. This will still allow you to put this assignment on the calendar, give it points, put it in the gradebook and score it, but it will not require students hand their work in digitally. Okay, so that's a really, really terrific solution. What you can also do, there's one other trick here, especially with adding grades into Schoology that may have already passed. In the gradebook area, check out this drop down. You can also add additional grade columns that have nothing to do with Schoology materials at all. So if you are syncing your grades to another system, you may want to put every single thing in Schoology, and I would suggest doing that so that the systems are completely in sync, they're identical. And adding assignments that do not require submission or adding custom grade columns here is really the best solution. So Kelsey, you worked on it before we started working together. You were on the support team for a very long time.
Yep.
And the gradebook certainly does generate questions in our support team because it's really, you can play around with discussions and things like that, but you can't really play around with your gradebook.
Right.
To put it lightly.
Yeah. I think the two biggest questions we get is, one, I don't see something that I am expecting to see in my gradebook.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I always say make sure it has a grading period, make sure it has a grading category, make sure it's published,
right,
and make sure it's not in the recycle bin.
Absolutely. Remember how we talked about folders that you could make them visible or invisible? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If something is invisible, it disappears from the gradebook. So it's all right to have things invisible if they're coming up in the future, but once something is graded, you have to keep it visible for it to be show up in the gradebook.
Right, definitely.
So best practices, again, this is just connecting the dots. Add grading periods, add grading categories. If you can't find a grade, there are some troubleshooting mechanisms here as well. Bulk editing, look for anything that did not have a category, check for invisible items, and check the recycling bin. See if maybe you removed something. And what those areas look like, under the cog icon, that's your bulk editor that will show you any gradable item in Schoology, so you can quickly update the categories, things like that. Under the course options, there's your recycling bin. And notice you've seen this a few times, but in here, we look at my folders. Notice one folder is invisible. If you've hidden any items in Schoology, unpublished an item in Schoology, it is also removed from the gradebook. For that reason, only hide items in the future. Don't hide your past items because they'll be removed from the student view. Simply use that drag and drop technique and put past items, put them at the bottom of the list, just pull them out of the way. Those of you, we talked about SIS syncs, but a lot of you do not use SIS syncs. Many people want to hear this information. What are other people doing? What are they required to report? So let's just get some quick results here. How often are you required to report your grades or scores into your student information system if you are in K-12 or higher ed. And I'll tell you the results I'm seeing are pretty consistent to all of the other sessions we've had. Half of you just need to report grades at the end of the marking period. This is really good news because you can do all of your grading in the Schoology Gradebook, get rid of that, that piece of paper or the Excel document you use, and then take that overall grade column and simply transfer it at the end of the marking period. That's a really efficient way to go. Okay. Any big questions here?
We're not seeing a lot of questions right now. It seems like everyone's taking it in, grasping the concept of weights and categories, and adding your own rubrics and scales.
Terrific. Excellent.